Welcome back. Today we have a fantastic guest, a real heavyweight. Professor Terrence Lee. He is Professor of Communications and Media Studies and a member of the Asia Research Centre at Murdoch University in Australia. He's a keen observer of Singapore politics, and he's also author of Voting in Change, Politics of Singapore's 2011 General Election. Also, editor of this book. Yes, one of the two editors. Welcome, Terrence.
Thank you, PJ.
So you just got into town, right?
I did on Saturday.
Okay.
Yes.
Have you managed to catch a lot of rallies?
I have caught two rallies to date. One Workers' Party and earlier on SDP rally as well.
Okay. Yeah. So what's your impression of the election so far? Just quickly from these few days.
I'm actually delighted that I made it to town because there's nothing like seeing the action live and physically being present here and soaking in the mood of the voters. My impressions are actually quite surprisingly better than I had expected. Before I got here, I've been following the news obviously over the last virtually every day for the last 6 months, anticipating that the election would be called in SG 50 year.
Yeah.
Prior to coming, my take was that this was merely a stocktake election. I expected that the outcome would be status quo. Pretty much the seats will hold the way they have been, other than the new seats created, of course. So that was my take. But when I got into town very quickly, I could feel that people were interested in participating in the election. Right. And that would mean, following up on news. While traveling on public transport, I actually peered over to people's smartphones and found that a number of people were actually reading election stuff, which in a way took me by surprise. But I shouldn't be surprised really, but it did take me by surprise.
In 2011, that wasn't the case then. When you were on the MRT, you didn't see people.
Well, I wasn't here in 2011.
Oh yes,
okay. So unfortunately, I wasn't physically here to capture the action. But I suppose on this occasion, you could see people were interested.
Yeah.
Going to the rallies as well. I'm pretty sure that not everyone who attended last night at the Workers' Party rally were Workers' Party supporters, but they were listening intently.
Yeah.
And so I can see that people are participating in the whole political process.
Right. That's fantastic. Do you feel then that is it a genuine engagement with the issues, or is it more of a sort of come and gawk at these people that we only see once every 5 years? Because obviously there is still very much a government monopoly of information.
Absolutely. Look, there are two sides to it.
Yeah.
I think, for entertainment-starved Singaporeans, a general election presents one of those performances.
Yes.
A theater, if you like, right?
Yeah.
That comes every 4 or 5 years. So, why not make the most of it and enjoy the hustings in every sense? I think the other side are people who, because of the last election and the one prior, 2011 mainly, and also 2006, I think political consciousness have been raised by a majority of Singaporeans. I mean, I described it at the book launch of that book as politics 101 being played out in Singapore, and I felt that was a good thing because prior to that, elections were non-event. So it is now an event. Right. It's an event to take advantage of, whether to air your grouses, to say a few things, to hear about what politicians think, find out the caliber of their politicians to be, as well as politicians, and then to cast a vote with some information, ideally as educated as they can be, but not necessarily so.
I'm actually reminded by this election of our pre-independence elections. It hasn't quite reached that height.
That's right.
But the TOC, for example, the Online Citizen, ran an article about the old left and how they've been going around. Many of them have volunteered, especially for the SDP, which has pledged to repeal ISA, have gone around volunteering and leafleting with great determination. And of course, Dr. Po Soo Kai, the former Assistant Secretary General of the Barisan Socialists, has actually said that he's actually really excited by this election, and it reminds him of
Those
you know,
days, yeah.
those
Yep.
days when we had reasonably free elections.
Reasonably free.
Yes,
I mean,
yeah,
without going to the structures of the system, which has
yeah,
tremendous flaws,
yeah,
right? I agree with that. I think that this is probably the closest 2011 and now 2015 would be the closest that I think Singaporeans of this generation and even any Singaporean alive now, um, they would either reminisce the past back then, or they would say, "Wow, this is what politics should be." I mean, having said that, it's very clean.
yes, yes,
It's very orderly, it's very organized kind of
yeah,
election, which I think is a good thing.
yes, of course,
We're,
yes,
we're not calling for
definitely.
people to go out on the streets to protest.
Yes, no, no, we've gone way past that.
Yeah.
I think there was someone else, I think, oh, it was Alex Au, who noted
All
how
right, okay.
one speaker punched the air and shouted Merdeka,
Yep.
right? And most voters just looked at him, had no idea what on earth he was talking about. 50 years ago, everyone was screaming
Yes, they all
Merdeka.
shouted together.
But this is SG50. Well, if you ask me, it's actually SG52, obviously,
Yes,
because
okay.
we got independence in '63.
Yep.
But there is a very different sort of political environment now.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
we have moved way past.
And I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing. And one of the things I said about raising political consciousness is precisely that people now understand, can draw the link between policies, outcomes, and the impact, therefore, on myself or my family.
Yes.
In the past, that it's a void, and I think a lot of Singaporeans, sad to say, because of the lack of political awareness for many years, are not privy to how electing a particular party and forming of government and the appointment of ministers have a direct bearing on their day-to-day lives. And I think
Right.
that's a good thing from having these sorts of contests. Whether it's through the rallies or whether there's a bit of exchange, not the mudslinging part, but
Yeah.
just the proper exchange about ideas
Yeah.
and policies.
So let's talk these ideas and policies
Yeah.
then. What do you think are the key issues that people are focusing on for this election?
People are focusing on, or the parties are focusing on, or the various individuals.
That's actually a very good point. Yes, I of course prefer to talk about the issues that people care about.
Right,
But
okay.
you're absolutely right. The parties are not necessarily focusing on those.
Look, I think
Yeah.
the issues fundamentally have not changed since the last election.
Yeah.
You have the same old issues. You have transport, which the PAP have tried very hard to put that off by the early announcement of new TOCs stepping down, in the hope that let's try not to talk about transport.
Yes.
I think that's still one of the issues.
Yes.
So you have transport, and closely linked to that, infrastructure, and closely linked to that, immigration.
Yes.
Right? You've got those issues. There are issues including education and health. Look, those are the perennial
Yeah.
issues
Yeah.
in any society.
Yes.
So I don't think you can have any meaningful political debate without those two coming in. Those are always key. And I think in most, particularly democracies.